The stock market. You've heard the buzzwords: buy, sell, long, short, bull, bear, markets up and markets down. For a new trader or investor, that can be very intimidating. The first step in understanding the stock market is you must understand stocks themselves. I'm Scott Connor, a 30-year veteran trader, and today I'm teaching you the basics of stocks right here on Virtual Trade. Welcome to Virtual Trade. In this episode, we'll be breaking down the basics of stocks. What is a stock? Why do companies issue stock? And most importantly, what does it mean to be a shareholder of a company? Later on, we'll dive into the Market Watch tab in thinkorswim, and we'll wrap up by welcoming in Jenny Horne, our brand new trader. Jenny's first lesson? Helping her build her first watch list of companies. What is a stock? A stock represents partial ownership in the company itself. An investor who purchases stock actually owns a small piece of the company or a share of that company. The investor also has a claim to its assets and future earnings of that company. Now, once an investor owns stock, there's two ways to potentially make money on that purchase. One is through appreciation or the value of the stock going higher. For example, if an investor buys 100 shares at a current price and that price goes up, they could turn around and sell that 100 shares for a higher price to lock in a profit. A second way is through dividends. This is a periodic payment that companies make to shareholders to help share in the earnings. Let's look at public versus non-public companies. And to do that, we'll start off with the New York Stock Exchange, where public companies are traded. Now think about companies that you have relationships with or day-to-day dealings with. For example, let's start with McDonald's. Many of us have taken the kids through McDonald's to get a Happy Meal perhaps. Think in terms of McDonald's as the symbol that's traded on New York Stock Exchange, which would be MCD. How about, let's think about phones. Apples, for example. Hard to think many households now that don't have at least one Apple device in the house. What is the symbol for Apple? Well, that's AAPL, and that again trades on the New York Stock Exchange. Let's take it down. Maybe someone who uses a Ford F-150 for their work on a daily basis. What's the symbol for Ford? Well, that's an easy one. That's one letter, F. Now, let's jump to another company that a lot of us deal with on a day-to-day basis, and that might be Uber. Wait a minute. Uber is not a public company. It's a non-public company and therefore does not have a symbol and does not trade on the New York Stock Exchange. It may later, but not right now. So why do companies go public and how do they do it? Let's have a look.
An IPO, or initial public offering, is the initial sale of a company stock to the public. Prior to the IPO, the company stock is privately held and cannot be sold to the public. Startup companies may go public to raise money to develop and grow their business. Other companies may go public to expand existing products or services. There are some other advantages to going public. Companies can raise capital without increasing debt and allow existing shareholders to profit from company growth by liquidating their shares. But on the flip side, public companies have increased reporting requirements and additional marketing, accounting, and legal costs. So how exactly does a company go public? First, a company gets the help of an investment bank to underwrite the public offering of shares. This means they set the price for how much each share sells for. In turn, the underwriter gets a commission on the sale of these shares. Often the lead underwriter will gather other investment banks into a syndicate, allowing more institutions to get involved. The company, along with the underwriting syndicate, will develop a prospectus, a report, detailing the specifics of the offering, and will register with the SEC. And then get purchase commitments from institutional investors, brokers, and other banks. These groups then make the shares available generally to high-value customers, typically in exchange for holding the stock for a period of time. This placement of shares is the initial public offering. Once the IPO is complete, shares start trading on a stock exchange. It's here that the stock price is determined by market forces, not the underwriters or company. Often there is a great deal of excitement driving buying and selling. Investors interested in participating in the initial placement should check with their broker for share availability. But for the average retail investor, buying shares at the offering price before the stock starts trading is difficult. Most will have to wait until it trades on the stock exchange. The lack of previous trading history, limited company information, and initial price volatility makes trading IPOs risky, and the risk of loss is substantial. But with the risk of loss comes the potential for profit as well, And this potential is one reason many traders pay so much attention to IPOs.
Let's review a few important points from the IPO process. Now, going public adds regulation and reporting requirements. Investment banks assist companies in distributing their shares, and oftentimes there are multiple investment banks involved in that process. It can be difficult for an average investor to participate in an IPO. And remember, IPOs can be extremely volatile once trading begins. Once a stock is publicly trading, let's take a look at what happens next.
Our investor is someone who has a little extra cash. He's looking for an investment that has the potential to offer better returns than a savings account, and he is willing to accept the higher risks of investing in a stock. He thinks Bullflag Cycling is a promising company that's likely to grow. Because of this, he thinks buying a share would be a good investment. When it comes to investing in the stock market, the basic goal is to buy when prices are low and sell when prices are high. But stocks in the stock market don't always go up. Sometimes they stay the same, and sometimes they go down. And sometimes prices change quickly. Because of this, stocks are considered riskier than other historically safer investments such as bonds or CDs. However, investors keep coming back to the stock market. Why? Because with this increased risk comes the potential for greater returns. Savvy investors take precautions to try to minimize risk, like creating an investing plan, adding diversity to their portfolios by investing in a variety of companies, putting money in other investments besides stocks, and learning trading strategies for up, down, and sideways markets.
So let's recap what we've learned so far. First, buying stock gives a purchaser ownership in a company along with certain rights. Secondly, a company sells stock to generate cash that it can use to expand its business. If the company is successful, the stock can potentially increase in price or value. And finally, if the company is not successful, the stock has potential to lose value. It's time for Tools of the Trade. Every day we look at various tools within TD Ameritrade, thinkorswim, and Mobile Trader. Today's tool, the MarketWatch tab on thinkorswim. Before we jump into the MarketWatch tab, let's just back up a little bit and think about the different stocks that we've talked about that we deal with on a daily basis, and then of course we've looked up different symbols to correspond with each of those companies. Now the question is, how do we monitor these different symbols in a list form, so to speak? Well, that's where we go to the MarketWatch tab. Once we build Watchlist, the MarketWatch tab will give us a dynamic way to follow these stocks on a day-to-day basis. So follow me on the thinkorswim platform. Let's take the first step on getting into these different watch lists. You can see we're on the Trade tab now. I'm just simply going to move over to the MarketWatch tab. That's the main tab. I'm going to drop down to the sub-tab that says Quotes. Now, once we're on that Quotes group, you'll start to see watch list. If there's nothing listed on that watch list, just click on the box where it says Quotes and you'll see the drop down. Now you can see there's personal lists, of course. That's what we happen to have in the list right now, Scott Connor's watch list. There's public watch lists of all the major indices that we'll be able to follow. And of course, we'll talk a little bit about dynamic watch lists, which are lists that are adding and removing different symbols all throughout the day. So let's take these one at a time. Let's go to my watch list. You can see Scott Connor's watch list, which we have loaded here. When you have the watch list, you'll have a description right next to it, and then of course you have different columns here. Now, when these different columns, you're able to add and remove certain columns that you'd like. For example, you can see we have the last price, which is the current trading price in the marketplace. You can see the net change on a daily basis. How much has that stock changed in dollar terms? You can see, for example, the top volatility is up 1.7. You can see exactly how much that has moved. We have 52-week high and 52-week low as well. What if I'd like to actually customize those columns? Well, follow along. It's very simple. I click on this little icon right here. It looks like a gear. Once that opens, click on Customize. Now, once I'm in Customize, I'm able to see a list of all the available items I can put into a column or into the column header. My current set of lists or of column headers is listed right here. But let's say in addition to seeing the net change, I'd like to see the percentage change of a stock on a daily basis. So what I can simply do is highlight the percentage change and click on Add Items. I could also double click on percentage change and that will move it over. So let's go ahead and move that one over, and you can see now it's in the watch list of our current set. Now I just hit OK. That'll go ahead and save it to our watch list. And as you can see on the far right, we now have percentage change added to our net change. Well, now you might be thinking, well, listen, I'd rather have net change right next to my percentage change. No problem. Watch this. I just click on that column header, I move it over, and now you can see we have last price, percentage change, as well as net change. So I would advise just jumping in there, looking at all the different possible things you can move in, select, and then customize your watch list doing that. Now, let's take a quick look in, go back here and jump from personal lists to the public list. Now, these are often watch lists people will look at to monitor the stock market. The four major indices, the Dow, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Russell are four of the main indices that people watch to keep tabs on the market. Let's jump down to the Dow Jones Industrial Average, one of those four major indices. Click on that, and now as you can see, we have all 30 stocks in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Now, when these lists start to get a little bit longer, there's easy ways to go ahead and filter what's in your list from high to low, for example. Let's go over here to net change. I'll click on that column header and you can see now it's giving me the net change from lowest or losses to highest or gains. If I click again, it will reverse that list and you can see now I have the gains at the top and the losses on going below that. So an easy way to kind of sort through your lists as you go through this. Let's also take a look at something else. Is there another way I can look at these watch lists other than the Market Watch tab? Well, yes, there is. There's other ways to look at sort of a condensed version of this. So follow along with me. I'm going to jump into what's called the left side bar. And when I open that up, you can see right now it's blank. So how do I add a watch list to this? Very simple. Go ahead and click on the plus symbol at the bottom, and you can see one of my choices is going to be watch list. Go ahead and click on that, and you'll see whatever last watch list was in. We have indices, but again, same thing, just like we did on the Market Watch tab. Click on here, and then you can jump into any of those lists you'd like to see. As a matter of fact, let's go back to the Dow Jones Industrial Average that we had before, and now we can see that list. You can also expand that list to fill the entire space available so you can see everything top to bottom. Now, one nice feature about watching things here in this left sidebar is I can move this and detach it anywhere I'd like on the platform. Follow along with me. I'm going to click here and go to Detach Gadget. Now, once I detach that, as you can see, I can move this watch list anywhere I'd like. I could even drag this onto another screen if I had a second screen. Here's another nice thing about this. If I click on the pin symbol, that will guarantee or ensure that this particular watch list stays on top. So anything I move underneath it, it won't get covered or buried. Watch, for example, I'll jump over to the calendar, for example, and you can see my background changed, but my watch list remained on top. So that is another nice feature on the thinkorswim software. I'm going to go ahead and close that one up, and we'll go back to our quotes. Now, one other thing I'd like to share with you, once you get used to building watch lists and following them and monitor them, whether it's on the quotes tab or on the left side bar, there's another way to take a quick snapshot at all the stocks in your personal or public list. Follow along with me. I'm going to hide the left side bar again to give us a little more room here. And once I do that, I'm going to move from quotes to visualize. Now, when I say snapshot, that's exactly what this is. It gives you a visual impression very quickly of what stocks in a certain watch list are doing, and it's all done in schematic form. So watch how this takes a look. We have the Dow Jones in here still, and you can see that we have all the different symbols in different size boxes. Well, the bigger boxes means that that stock is a bigger portion of that particular indice. And you can see Apple is actually one of the biggest stocks in the Dow Jones. You can also see sectors marked in these small boxes as well. So you can break down these different stocks in a watch list to the particular sector they belong. Now, what about the colors? Well, simple. If it's sort of orange or red, that means stocks are moving down. If the colors are green, that means those stocks are moving up. You can see today we have not much green on the map. Today happens to be a day when the market is down, so we're seeing lots of oranges. Now, the brighter the color, the more it's moving in that direction. Bright orange or to bright red means it's moving down a lot. If it's bright green, of course, it means it's moving up quite a bit compared to the other stocks. If it's a gray, neutral background, that means that stock is not moving much on the day itself. So here's a great way to sort of, like I said, get a quick snapshot of the different stocks, how big they are in the different watch lists, and how they're moving intraday. All right, well, that wraps up our segment on watch lists and how you can monitor your stocks personally or publicly. And don't forget, if you want more information on these tools and other great education, visit the Education Center on tdameritrade.com. Welcome back, and joining me is Jenny Horne. Jenny's a writer for the TD Ameritrade Network. Jenny, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Great to have you on the show. Jenny, what we're going to be doing today is building your first watch list. What do you think?
I'm excited. I've never built one before, so I feel like I have a lot to learn here.
Great. Now, we started talking a little bit earlier about companies and that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, and start thinking in terms of, what symbols are associated with those stocks. Well, we're going to now take them and put them into a watch list for you so you can easily monitor them and see how they're doing.
Great. I'm excited. I have a lot of stocks that I keep in mind just based on my day-to-day life, like you said.
Perfect.
So I think I have a pretty good list. I'm ready to get started.
Okay, well, Jenny, typically when people are building a watch list for the first time, or even a portfolio for that matter, is they tend to want to diversify that portfolio, right? So picking different companies or stocks from different groups, or what we call sectors. So I thought a great way to start or kick off your watch list is let's start looking at some sectors and maybe pick some names within those sectors. What do you think?
That's great.
Okay, well, let's start off. Some of the popular sectors, let's start off with utilities. How about that? Do you deal with any kind of energy or utilities companies?
Far too often. I do have a utilities bill that unfortunately I have to pay, whether I like to or not, and it's through ComEd, which I know is owned by Exelon.
Exactly. So Exelon being the sort of the mother company of ComEd, let's look at that symbol. Now, Exelon happens to be EXC.
Okay, great.
All right, so what we're going to do is before we can put this into a list, let's go ahead and build that first watch list, save it, we'll give it a name, and then we'll start dropping some of these symbols in. All right?
All right.
So follow me on the software. I'm going to move from the Monitor tab over to the Market Watch tab, and then the subquote within that group is going to be quotes. Now here's where we're going to build that watch list, and this is where it will always be stored and saved once we build it.
Okay.
All right, so follow along. How do we start our first watch list? Well, drop over here to the three horizontal lines, click on that, and you'll see the big words pop out, Create Watch List. Very simple. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that Create Watch List, and there you can see, I'll drag it over to the left, and you can see here's our first watch list. But Jenny, we need a name for this watch list, so I'm going to give you the honor of going ahead and put that in.
Okay, like I said, Scott, this is my first watch list, so I'll just keep it very simple and name it Jenny's First Watch List.
Perfect. Now click on Save, and there you go. Now, Jenny, you noticed, there it is. It's already popped in here. It says Jenny's First Watch List. Now, anytime you want to come back and look at perhaps a different watch list that you've built personally, or go to, like we said, public watch list to be able to watch how the Dow Jones is doing or the S&P 500, this is where you'll find them all.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, you ready to get started?
I am. So
all right, very simple.
Exelon, right?
Yes, so right below the word symbol, exactly, you'll see a little cursor there blinking. It's asking you for a symbol. So let's go ahead and put in your first symbol, EXC.
Now, Scott, here's a question. Okay, I see it populate. What if I didn't know Exelon's ticker?
Okay. Great question, because this will arise for everybody that's looking for a symbol from time to time.
Yes.
Let's go back to the Trade tab. And right now we have Exelon in there. I'm going to back it out, hit Enter. Now there's no symbol in that box at all.
Okay.
So, and that's typically by default how it will open. Now, if you just start typing in the name of the company, Exelon, start spelling that out, you can see this.
Oh, there it is.
The first name in that list is Exelon. Now, just by clicking on that first name in the drop-down, it will go ahead and populate EXC for you right in the box.
Great, that's awesome.
Perfect. All right, let's jump back to the Market Watch list, and let's keep building this list and put in our second example. Let's think in terms of another important sector within the markets, manufacturing. Anything come to mind there?
Yes, I actually went to school in Champaign, Illinois, which is right next to Moline, Illinois, where I know the headquarters of John Deere is in Moline. So Deere & Co. is one I've always just kind of known based on the brand is super popular, but also from going to school so close to their headquarters.
Yeah, and Deere is another great example of what we call a multinational company. It has a lot of name recognition, and we kind of put those in what we call the blue chip stocks, right? These are stocks that have been around a long time. They're big corporations. So a great choice. Symbol for that would be DE.
DE.
Very simple.
Great.
And you can see it put in there. And again, you can see, Jenny, as soon as you put it in, if you look to the right, you'll have the name or the description of the company spelled out for you, just to make sure, to confirm that symbol matches the company.
Right, that's actually the company I want in my
Perfect.
watch list.
All right, let's keep going. What else do you deal with on a day-to-day basis, like most people? I'm going to guess maybe a checking or a credit card or some sort of banking account.
Yes, actually, I've been loyal to PNC for pretty much as long as I've had a checking account. So I would say PNC is one I keep an eye on, and I'm going to go ahead and guess their ticker might be PNC.
You guessed it. That was a very good guess. You don't need to search that symbol.
That's easy.
PNC, and oftentimes you'll find that sometimes these symbols are very similar to the company names, or at least sound similar. One little point of information is you can see many of our symbols have 2 or 3 letters in them. Those are typically New York or American Stock Exchange companies. If they have 4 letters, that typically denotes a NASDAQ company.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Sure, or NASDAQ traded stock, I should say. All right, let's keep going. How about in terms of healthcare? That's another important segment. Healthcare or health products. Anything come to mind there?
Yeah, I mean, I'll focus on health products just because we had this brand, Johnson & Johnson, growing up all the time around my house. So it's something that is super well known to me and kind of reminds me of childhood. So Johnson & Johnson.
You're right, that is a household name. Symbol for that would be J&J. Again, very similar to the company. And there
they are.
There it is, Johnson & Johnson. Okay, now let's see. I'm sure you have cell phones, or you at least have dealt with telecommunications or carriers. Anybody that you're with right now?
Yes, probably I utilize them far too often because I'm on my cell phone too much,
Okay.
but Verizon is my carrier.
Perfect. Simple. 2 letters. VZ.
VZ.
Verizon.
And there they are.
Communications. Exactly. Got it.
Great.
Now, let's see. I'm gonna just take a wild guess here and think that you've probably played a video game or two in your lifetime.
I have, and I actually am a loyal Fortnite player, which is super big right now. And when they came out, they took a huge chunk of Activision Blizzard's market cap, which is just really interesting. So Activision Blizzard is one I never really knew was publicly traded until I started playing Fortnite, actually.
Yep, a big name in the gaming sector.
Yes.
All right, so Activision. Symbol there is ATVI. Activision Blizzard. There we go.
There they are.
Perfect. All right, we're starting to round this portfolio out and get some good exposure to the different sectors. Let's keep going. How about, we talked a little bit about utilities. Let's move into energy. Energy is an important sector, especially with all the movement where you see in underlying commodities like oil and things like that. So what about driving a car or gas or anything like that?
Yes.
What energy sector would you think about?
I'm a bit biased because I no longer have a car. So fortunately for me, I'm no longer dealing with the price of gas. But back when I did have a car, ExxonMobil was a gas station right by my house, and I would probably spend too much money there. But they're one I kind of watch.
Yep, another sort of a blue chip type name in the energy sector, and a multinational corporation as well. Symbol for that, XOM. M is in Mary. Okay, so Exxon. Well, all right, well, let's keep going. Let's do one more, and I'm going to guess that you probably go shopping from time to time?
I do.
All right, well, let's take that shopping and maybe move it into something like apparel or sportswear or anything like that.
Yeah, actually, I think the new up-and-coming athleisure brand is kind of cool because it's super popular and it's kind of growing, and Lululemon is one of those that was kind of at the beginning of that trend.
Yeah.
So I follow them also.
It's hard to go outside without seeing someone wearing Lululemon or something like that.
It
All
is.
right. Symbol for that's, again, very simple. Lulu, L-U-L-U.
Oh, great. That is super simple. Makes sense.
Okay. All right, so we've got about 8 different stocks here. Now, keep in mind, Jenny, there are more sectors than we're looking at, and of course there are subsectors as well, but this is a great start.
It is, and it's super diverse. I'm seeing a lot of red and green, so I'm, like you said, the word diversification, I hope that's kind of what we accomplished here.
We did. We made a great start at it. Now, when you're looking at your watch list from time to time, or maybe even on a daily basis to sort of monitor how your stocks are doing, you can sort them in the different columns. For example, the net change, if you can see up here, I'll click on the arrow right there, and you can see now it just sorted all the different stocks by how much they're up or down on the day. So this is an easy way for you to go through and kind of say, okay, among all my stocks, which ones are doing well and which ones on this particular day might be lagging a little bit.
Right, kind of the winners and losers of my own watch list, I guess.
Right, and it's a great way to monitor your watch list. Now I'm going to show you something, Jenny, this is fun. Another way to monitor your watch list, but in a different form.
Okay.
It's going to be in what we call a snapshot or a heat map. So let's follow along. I'm going to move simply, I'm staying on Market Watch, but I'm going to move from quotes to visualize. Now when I hit visualize, you'll see this, what's called a heat map, but we're going to go down and find your new watch list, and that would be under personal, of course. So let's click on personal, and let me jump over here to the left, jump on personal, and we're going to go to Jenny's first watch list, and there it is. Now you have a snapshot of your stocks, the symbols that you put in your watch list, but we're looking at, like I said, this is very informative. What it does is it shows you not only the name of this company like Exxon, but if you look at the size of the box, Exxon's in probably the largest box there.
It is.
Well, that's telling you that Exxon is one of the biggest corporations in your group.
Wow, yeah, that's fascinating because, I mean, I know they're huge companies, but I never realized how much bigger they were than, say, Activision Blizzard or PNC.
Right, and we just get that by looking at the number of shares out there times the value of those shares, and that shows you how big that company is. We oftentimes refer to that as capitalization of a company.
That's cool.
Another thing that's really neat is, we were talking about sectors, you can see that Exxon falls in the energy sector. So that little white box denotes the sector of the different stocks you in. You can see we're pretty well diversified. We have 8 different sectors.
We are. That's awesome.
Now, you can obviously have many stocks within one sector. We could have had Exxon, we could have had Chevron, ConocoPhillips, but they would all fall in that
Right,
energy.
and we'd be able to see that through kind of
Exactly.
the bubble that is energy or telecommunications.
So you get to see the size, the sector, and what direction the stock happens to be moving on that day.
Wow, that's great to know. This is awesome. I'm definitely going to come back to this.
I like this too. I like to get a quick view of that.
Yeah.
Well, listen, folks, that's it for our Tradecraft segment today. Thanks, Jenny, for building your first watch list.
Yeah, I learned a ton, Scott. I'm excited to keep learning more with you, I guess.
Fantastic. I look forward to it. And Jenny, we will see you next time. Now that you understand what stocks are and how you can monitor them in a watch list, you now have a unique opportunity to begin the steps in becoming an investor. Start by opening an account at TD Ameritrade and think about the various companies you deal with on a day-to-day basis. Next, build a watch list of these companies in the Paper Money demo account and practice purchasing shares in a portfolio. This is when it becomes fun. You'll no longer think about these companies as entities that you have to deal with, but companies that you actually own a piece of. Companies that may in fact contribute to your financial future. I'm Scott Connor. Thanks for watching Virtual Trade.